Hello everyone, I welcome you to my YouTube channel Professor Civil Mandal. Here I speak about civil engineering and you will find my various video lectures regarding various topics of civil engineering over here. So now we are on to the second part of this video and this is the continuation of the basic concept on RCC. This is the part 2 of the video, and if you want to know about the part 1 of this particular video or this particular lesson, you may just check onto the description. The link is given for the part 1 of this particular chapter. So in the previous part we were actually discussing about the two different states of concrete, that is the fresh concrete and the hardened concrete, and also we were studying about the concrete mix design, and we started a brief introduction of this particular chapter. Now on to the second part of this video lesson. First we will start with a comparison between the cube and the cylinder. So as you know that both uniaxial compressive strength of concrete can be determined by using different shapes of specimen, that is cube, cylinder and prism, etc. So three mostly used shape of concrete are actually casted, that is either it's a cube or it's a cylinder or it's a flexure or it's a prism, sorry. So using this cube, cylinder or prism, we actually try to determine the uniaxial compressive strength of the concrete. So there are various such other shapes. These are the three primarily used ones. So in this section we have done a comparison between the cube and the cylinder regarding which one is good in taking the lateral stresses. So in the first figure you can see that we have a cylinder over here, and in the second figure we have a cube. So now the dotted lines, these particular dotted lines, these dotted lines represent the area of the lateral stress distribution. This is that particular area which is affected by the lateral stresses. So if you see the cylinder, you will see that only this much and this much is affected by the lateral stresses, whereas for a cube this much is the area or the volume, we can say that it is affected by this lateral stresses. So now if you compare these two particular shapes, you will see that this part, this is a good part in the cylinder, 0.26d, where D2d, if 2d is considered as the depth, 2d is considered as the depth of this particular cylinder and d is its diameter. So out of this only 0.866d will be taken up by this part of the cone. Only this much is taken up by the 0.866d, and similarly this one is also 0.866d again. The remaining 0.268d will actually not be affected by the lateral stresses. So here I have represented that central region unaffected by lateral stresses. So this region is actually devoid of any lateral stresses, whereas if you consider a cube, most of the part is affected by the lateral stresses. The specimen affected by lateral stress throughout its height. So throughout its height a cube will be affected by the lateral stresses. So in other words you can say that, so there's one relation for F cube which is 1.25 times the F of cylinder, that is the lateral friction. So cylinder gives more appropriate results for uniaxial compressive strength of concrete because effect of friction or lateral stress between the machine plates and specimen is almost nil. So in comparison to cube, you can say that the cylinder will be less affected by the lateral friction, and on the contrary, as it is being affected less by that particular lateral friction thing, so that lateral friction in the particular cylinder will be affecting the uniaxial compressive strength results much lesser as compared to what will be being affected in case of that cube. So we can say that cylinder will give us more appropriate results for uniaxial compressive strength. It is because it will be less affected by the lateral stresses as compared to the cubes. So a cube of smaller size gives more strength than standard cube. So it is an experimental data that a cube of smaller size gives more strength than standard cube. The standard cube which we use, that is 150 cross 150 cross 150 mm. This particular dimension of cube is known as the standard cube and is mostly used in all of the labs, all of the concrete testing labs for conducting the tests related to concrete. So experimentally it is found that a cube of smaller size, suppose if I have a cube of 100 cross 100 cross 100 or 75 cross 75 cross 75, these cubes will actually give us more strength as compared to the cube which was 150 cross 150 cross 150, the standard one. So a cube of smaller size gives more strength than the standard cube. This is one point to be noted. Next is a smaller cylinder also gives higher strength than standard cylinder provided ratio of height to diameter remains constant. So again, keeping that ratio of diameter, keeping the ratio of diameter to the height, diameter to height, we will just keep it constant, and keeping it constant, if we reduce the size of the cylinder, only the ratio of that diameter to the height of the cylinder won't be unaltered, but the dimensions will be altered in such a way that the diameter, the ratio of the diameter and that height of the cylinder remains constant. So keeping that constant, if you reduce the dimensions, it is seen that a smaller cylinder gives higher strength than standard cylinder provided ratio of height to diameter remains constant. So this one is an important part, that is the height to diameter should remain constant, then only this experimental result can be said valid. And the last point says that the above results are experimental. So actually all these points which I have noted here, all are actually based upon the experimental observations. So these are found experimentally that these criteria happen with the shapes of different concrete cubes or different concrete specimen like cube or cylinder. Next we move on to the stress strain diagram of the concrete. So it is a relation between the stress and the strain represented in form of a graph, and strain is given in the x-axis whereas the compressive stress is given in the y-axis. So we have a stress strain diagram of particular concrete, and so also on the right hand side it is represented that there are cubes of different strengths. So for cubes of different strength, these graphs will be somewhat different, but even if the graphs are somewhat different, the trend is quite similar, that at a certain point they will reach the peak value, that is the highest amount of compressive stress it can take one particular specimen of particular compressive strength. One specimen will take up to a certain compressive stress, and then again it will further more collapse and the strain will further keep on increasing. So in other words, you can say that when it is getting a peak at a certain level, when the compressive stress is being provided and simultaneously some strain is also being occurred over it. So as we put the compressive stress, we put the compression, after putting the load, certain amount of strain will be occurring in that particular specimen. So that strain will keep on increasing as and when we increase the compressive stress. So more we increase the compressive stress, the more will be the strain, and it is seen that at a certain point the compressive stress will reach its peak value. It will achieve its peak value, and after attaining that particular value, it will be seen that even if we apply the compressive stress continuously, we keep on increasing the compressive stress. We continuously keep on increasing the loads. The compressive stress will actually not be able to attain a higher value. Now this time the compressive stress value will be lesser, and on the other hand, strain as usual will keep on increasing up to a certain limit until and unless the specimen collapses. So you can say that this particular graph between stress and strain for a concrete will be somewhat parabolic, and it is as shown in the figure. But if we increase the strength of the concrete, that is, we are using concretes of some higher grades, then we will achieve the peak values of compressive stress at some higher levels. See, for different strengths of concretes, we will receive some higher values. So as we increase the strength of the concrete, we increase the grade of the concretes. So time and time also the peak value will also increase. But in other words, you can say that it will be a parabolic curve. Also, one thing can be noted, that during the last part, when the peak value is achieved by that particular specimen, the collapse value is much higher for the case of the concretes with higher strength or higher grades. So let us read the points. Like, stress strain diagram is nonlinear. First of all, you can see that the stress strain diagram is nonlinear, though we can say that at up to a certain point these are linear, but after that point it will be somewhat parabolic. The initial portion of the stress strain diagram can be considered as linear. Yes, we can consider the initial part as linear. As you can see, this is totally linear. Next is the maximum compressive stress is corresponding to approx strain 0.002. So the maximum compressive stress is corresponding to approx strain 0.002. So you can see that 0.002 is the middle value, and most of the graphs are achieving the peak value at 0.002 strain only. Just have a look on the graph. Most of them are having strain achieving the peak compressive strength values at 0.002 strain or somewhat higher values for some higher grades of concretes. The ultimate strain lies between 0.04 to 0.006. So the ultimate strain, that is the maximum amount of strain a concrete will be showing, will be lying between 0.004 to 0.006, and the modulus of elasticity increases with increase in grade of concrete. So whenever we increase the grade of concrete, the modulus of elasticity will also increase, which we have seen in the graph. The brittleness increases with increase in grade of concrete. So again you can say that brittleness increases with increase in grade of concrete. So the down curve, the curve when it is going downwards, it is more in case of the ones which are having higher strength. See these are somewhat flat, but these ones are actually very sharp. So you can in other words say that the compressive stress will suddenly decrease, or you can say that the cube will suddenly fail and it will reach its maximum strain if the strength of the concrete is somewhat higher. See, the curves are actually sharp over here, but for this the curves are not so sharp. It is somewhat less sharp as compared to all this. And for the concrete with the least possible strength is having almost a flat curve. The last one is almost having a flat curve. So the brittleness is actually, we can say that, is very less for this particular strength of concrete. Next is the tensile strength of concrete. So after the compressive strength, we are moving on to the tensile strength. So compressive strength is this, when we actually compress. Tensile strength is achieved due to the pull. So whenever we are pulling that particular concrete element, there will be some amount of stresses generating, and those are the tensile stresses. So we also need to check for the tensile strength of a particular concrete. So if you consider a particular beam, suppose this is a beam, whenever there is some loading over the beam, it will somehow bend like this. It is quite obvious and natural. Whenever there is some load on the top of this beam won't be straight, it will somewhat bend, though it is negligible to our eyes. It is not visible to our eyes. So there will be some bend in the concrete particular beam, suppose concrete beam, and you can see that the fibers over here will be under compression and the bottom fibers will be under tension. So this is one kind of scenario where we can see some kind of tension. So there are many other scenarios where we see that the concrete is subjected to tension. So regarding the tensile strength of concrete, it is approximately 10%, that is 7 to 15% of the compressive strength. So you can say that the tensile strength of concrete is very much less as compared to the compressive strength of the concrete. So you can note one sentence that a concrete is very good in compression and very weak in tension. So it is found out experimentally that the tensile strength of the concrete is actually 10% to that of the compressive strength. So you can say that it is very much less than the compressive strength. So you can say that a concrete member can actually tackle compression much better way, or you can say that a concrete member will be tackling compression 10 times better than the tension. So whatever tension it will be getting, it will be able to tackle compression 10 times higher than that particular tensile force. But when it is a tensile force, it can only take about 1/10 of that compressive force. So you can just note one line that tensile strength of concrete is 10%, and you can say that concrete is thus strong in compression but weak in tension. Also, the stress strain diagram for the tensile strength of concrete is almost linear. The ratio of the compressive strength to tensile strength increases with increase in grade of concrete. So if you increase the grade of concrete, the ratio of compressive strength to tensile strength increases. So more, it's like you can say that more you will increase the grade of the concrete, though it won't affect the tensile strength that much, but it will affect the compressive strength very much. So even if you increase the grade of the concrete, it won't affect the tensile strength. So if you are thinking that I can increase the tensile strength of a particular concrete by increasing the grade of the concrete, or by increasing the strength of that particular concrete, the grade of the concrete, I can say. So you can say that the compressive strength will be increasing. No doubt, undoubtedly the compressive strength will be increasing, but the tensile strength won't be increasing much. Like suppose I can give you one example, like the ratio of compressive strength to tensile strength of a particular concrete is suppose 5. So that is, the compressive strength is 50 and the tensile strength is 10. So I have increased the grade of the concrete, and on increasing the grade of the concrete, it is seen that the tensile strength has become like 16. From 10 to 16 it has become from 10 to 16 now. The tensile strength is now 16, and the compressive strength has somewhat become like, suppose it has become 160. So previously it was 50, now it has become 160. So the ratio will be increasing. 160 by 16 is 10, and 50 by 10 is 5. So the ratio of compressive strength to tensile strength has increased, but the tensile strength hasn't increased much. Compressive strength has increased at a very large extent. So one cannot say that if by increasing the grade that I can increase the tensile strength of the concrete. No, it won't be possible. Only you can do that, you can increase the compressive strength of the concrete by increasing the grade of that particular concrete. Now, since the tensile strength of the concrete is ignored in RCC structure, it has very less importance. Tensile strength, just note one thing, that tensile strength of concrete is ignored in RCC structure. Why? Because this particular tensile tension thing will be taken up by the reinforcement, that is the steel reinforcements that we'll be using in the concrete members. So about that we will be reading in some later section what are the reinforcement. Till then you need to know that the tensile strength of concrete is ignored in case of the RCC structure. So we don't consider the tensile strength. It's like, why we should consider if that concrete is not able to provide sufficient tensile strength as much as it is good in the compressive strength. So it's no meaning to take the tensile strength, whereas actually one steel reinforcement can actually take better strength as compared to concrete, better tensile strength as compared to concrete. So that tension part will be taken up by that reinforcement. So there is no use of consideration of the tensile strength of concrete. Though, however, it is calculated to determine the cracking moment. So if you want to determine the cracking moment, then we use the tensile strength of a concrete. So the direct tension test and flexure test are two types of tests which are used to determine the tension of a concrete. Direct tension test is a practical application, and it is done mostly in the field, and practically it is very difficult to perform direct tension because the force never remains perfectly axial due to non-homogeneity of the concrete. Though if you want to know about the direct tension test, you can know it from internet or from other sources, but till now just know one thing, that practically it is difficult to perform direct tension test because if the force never remains axial, perfectly axial tension due to the non-homogeneity of concrete, of course we cannot reach the 100% homogeneity of a particular concrete. So if we are not able to reach the 100% homogeneity of a particular concrete, so it is, we can say that it is non-homogeneous, and the axial tension won't be perfectly axial because of this reason. So in the direct tension test, we actually, there is some use of axial tension, and which is not possible practically, that the concrete is not homogeneous, and thus the tension force which we will be trying to put it axially won't be axial at all. It will be somehow eccentric. So the direct tension test is practically difficult to perform. So we will be ignoring it for the time being. It's better to consider some better test, that is the flexure test, which will be practically possible. And this is most of you must have done in that concrete testing lab. So this is somehow the apparatus where we have the head of the testing machine, and there are 2 points, which is putting the load on this particular prism beam, and also we have 2 supports over here. And using the simple concept of this strength of materials, you can see that we also we know the flexure formula from the strength of materials subject. We know this, that the strength flexure formula is somewhat like this: M by I is equal to F by Y, which is equal to E by R, and this thing is used to calculate the flexure for this particular prism. Okay, so the third point loading is applied for pure bending condition, and this is the our flexure condition. That is, the third point loading is applied for pure bending condition. Okay, let me highlight this. Let me highlight the sentence. And the value of P is increased from 0 to value corresponding to which the first cracking develops in the extreme tension fiber. So we start from 0 and we keep on increasing until and unless we get the first cracking in the extreme tension fiber. So corresponding to that cracking load, bending moment is calculated in the central position and the tensile strength is calculated as illustrated above in the particular flexure formula we can use to calculate the tensile strength. We will do a particular example related to this, and the IS 456 provides formula for flexural tensile strength of modulus of rupture as FCR is equal to 0.7 root FCK. So this is our formula for the modulus of rupture or flexural tensile strength. And FCK, as you know, is the characteristic compressive strength of that particular concrete, and square rooting it and multiplying it with 0.7 will give us the FCR or the flexural tensile strength. So next we have a problem where a PCC beam of section 200 cross 300 mm is made up of M30 concrete, and we are asked to calculate the cracking moment of the section. So let us try to solve this particular problem. So we are asked to calculate the cracking moment of this particular beam of cross section 200 cross 300, width 200 and depth 300, and I have made one cracking moment diagram for this particular beam, and it is 0.7 root FCK over here, and this is plus and this is minus. This is positive moment will be available here and negative moment will be available here. And let us consider this is the y, which is the depth of the neutral axis. Suppose we have a neutral axis where it is neither negative nor positive. So according to the flexure formula, we know that it is m by I is equal to f by y, which is equal to E by R. Let us just forget this part now. M by I is equal to f by y, and as we are calculating the cracking moment, let us consider that this one as MCR and this one as FCR. So on by doing this, what we will say that FCR, we know that FCR is equal to 0.7 root FCK, 0.7 root FCK, and FCK according to the question is given, it is an M30 concrete, so FCK will be equal to 30. So therefore FCR will be equal to 0.7 root 30, as in the question we are given that it is a M30, it is an M30 concrete, and therefore FCK will be equal to 30. That is our characteristic compressive strength, and therefore on calculating this, FCR will be coming out to be 3.834 Newton per mm square. So this is our cracking FCR, and also we know that I is equal to BD cube by 12, and it is given by, because for a square figure or for a rectangular figure we know that I is equal to BD cube by 12, where B is the breadth or the width and D is the depth. So it is equal to 200 cross 300 cube by 12, and it will give us a value which is equal to 450 times 10 to the power 6 mm to the power 4. On calculation we will get I equal to 450 times 10 to the power 6 mm to the power 4. So y is nothing but d by 2, because y is at the center. At the center only this thing will be neutral, so it is d by 2 and it is equal to 300 by 2 and it is equal to 150 mm. Therefore I can say that I have the value of y, I have the value of I, and I also have the value of FCR. So let us put all this in this particular equation and we will get MCR upon I is given by 450 times 10 to the power 6, which is equal to FCR will be given by 3.834 Newton per mm square, and also y is given by 150 mm. So I am trying to keep all these dimensions in mm because I also have this strength in Newton per mm square, this particular stress value, and this particular moment of inertia is also in millimeter to the power 4, and also I have kept this depth y as 150 mm. So keeping all this in mm, so I can get MCR will be equal to, MCR on solving this one, it will be equal to, and if I want to convert it from mm to meter and also Newton to kilonewton, on doing that it will be equal to 11.502 kilonewton meter. So if I would have kept it in Newton millimeter, then it would have been somewhat a very large value, so therefore I converted it to kilonewton meter, so it is 11.502 kilonewton meter. So it was a very simple problem which shows us the application of that particular flexure formula to find the cracking moment of a particular beam, provided we are given the strength and the dimensions of the cross section. That was all about this particular problem. I hope it was clear. And next we now move on to another test, that is the split cylinder test, and it is also used to determine the tension of a particular concrete, and it is, the concrete specimen should be cylindrical. So therefore the test is also named as cylinder split test, where we will split one cylinder into two halves, and on splitting that cylinder, whatever strength will be applied or whatever load will be applied will be used to calculate the particular strength that particular specimen can take up. So a line loading along the length is applied at diametrically endpoints. So you can see that in this diagram, in this particular diagram, that in this cylinder, at the two diametrically endpoints, we are applying a line load, which is by, suppose we are placing any bar or any rod, and thus that will be used to apply that line load, and that too in two diametrically opposite points, or two diametrically opposite strips, I would say it rather. And this is the further cross section of that particular setup, and due to this loading the cylinder splits into two parts. It's quite simple that after a certain point, on application of continuous loading at these two particular strips which are diametrically opposite to each other, the cylinder will split into two parts, and whatever the load that will be used or that will be applied on that particular cylinder to split it into two parts will be used to calculate the strength that the cylinder can take up, and that will give us the split cylinder tensile strength. We will say that it is our split cylinder tensile strength, and that stress will be given by FCR equal to 2P upon pi dl. This is the formula. 2P upon pi dl will be the stress due to that operation, and there's one relation: F of flexure is greater than F of cylinder split, and that is greater than F of direct. So we have read about three tests over here. One is the direct test, that is the first one, which we have actually skipped about it, which is not important. You know the reason why. First the direct tension test, second is the flexure test, and third is the split cylinder test, the stress obtained by the flexure test will be actually higher than the one obtained by the split cylinder test, and further it is higher than the direct tension test. Next we move on to another factor, that is the shrinkage of the concrete. And actually it is seen that the concrete has the shrinkage property due to the presence of the cement. So you know that cement after a certain point starts shrinking. So the concrete, as it has got some cement, it will also show the property of shrinkage. So IS 456 provides a standard value of shrinkage of concrete for design of RCC structure. So IS 456 has given us a standardized value which we shall use for providing the shrinkage strain of the concrete. So shrinkage strain is actually epsilon st, and it is given as 0.003, which is equal to 0.3%, or it is 3 times 10 to the power minus 4, whichever way you want to represent, you can represent it, and it is this value which is standardized by our Indian standard 456. Next, there is one chart discussing about the durability of a concrete. So durability, which we have already read about the definition, right? Like durability is the ability to sustain loading. So how much a concrete member or a particular concrete structure can sustain loading for some prolonged period. That is the durability of that particular concrete member or concrete element or concrete structure. And this is a chart. Here it is a chart. This one is a chart which actually gives us the comparison of various durability conditions, provided that there are certain conditions with which that particular concrete is exposed. And what shall be the minimum grade of concrete, what shall be the minimum nominal cover, the minimum cement content and the maximum water to cement ratio. So if you don't know about the nominal cover is that extra amount of concrete that is provided after we are providing that particular reinforcement or the particular dimension of the concrete. We are providing some certain extra amount of cover of concrete, which is actually meant for the purpose of providing it a resistance to the exposure to the various conditions it is being exposed to, like temperature or rainfall, etc. So the first type of concrete will be called mild concrete. Based upon the durability, we are actually dividing concrete into 5 types. First is the mild, next is the moderate, next is severe, very severe, and finally we have the extreme ones. So for the mild exposure condition, and the description is that it should be able to protect from rainfall. So the ability to protect from rainfall, or just simple, when you just face rainfall, that is considered as very mild condition for any kind of concrete, and the description says that it should be able to protect itself from the rainfall. So for that, the minimum grade of concrete should be M20, and the minimum nominal cover should be 20 mm, and 300 kg per meter cube should be the minimum cement content, and maximum water to cement ratio shall be 0.55. So this thing is asterisk marked because it is also seen that it can be reduced to 15 mm for reinforcing bar dia 12 mm or less. So suppose we have some reinforcing bar whose diameter is 12 mm or less. So we need not to provide a 20 mm nominal cover. So we need not to provide 20 mm nominal cover. For that, 15 mm will be sufficient for that particular concrete element, like beam, slab or column. Next is the moderate exposure condition, and the description says that for moderate exposure condition, that it is subjected to moderate rainfall, permanently submerged in normal water, and the foundation in non-aggressive soil. So you can see that for moderate condition, the concrete should be subjected to moderate rainfall, permanently submerged in normal water, if it is permanently submerged in normal water, or if the foundation is in some non-aggressive soil, means the soil is quite alright, like it won't be having any aggressive effects like high amount of acidity or fluids or waters will be passing through it. It's not like that. That particular soil is quite non-aggressive. It's a quite normal or simple soil. So for that, the minimum grade of concrete shall be M25 and the minimum nominal cover shall be 30 mm. 30 kg per meter cube is the minimum cement content. So it doesn't matter with mild or moderate exposure. We are always using 30 kg per meter cube as the minimum cement content, and 0.5 shall be the water to cement ratio. For severe conditions, that is a coastal area subjected to heavy rainfall, permanently submerged in seawater, alternate drying and wetting in normal water, and occasional freezing, these are the conditions which are actually severe, and we will use M30 concrete and 45 mm of nominal cover, 320 kg per meter cube of minimum cement content, and 0.45 as the maximum water to cement ratio. So what's there against this 45 mm thing? That it can be reduced to 40 mm for grade of concrete M35 or higher. So if you have a grade of concrete M35 or higher, so you can reduce it to somewhat around 40 mm. So for that higher grades, we need not to have this 45 mm of nominal cover. Very severe conditions are those where it is subjected to sea spray, alternate drying and wetting is there, and permanent freezing shall be there. It's like it will be exposed to some permanent freezing condition like in very cold areas. So M35 shall be the recommended grade of that concrete. 50 mm is the nominal cover, 340 kg per meter cube shall be the minimum cement content, and 0.45 is the maximum water to cement ratio. Finally, the extreme conditions are the tidal zones and the subjected to aggressive chemicals like if the zone is subjected to very high amount of tides, like we have some structures around the seashores, or if it is subjected to some aggressive chemicals like some chemical farm or a chemical factory where there are aggressive chemicals are there, so we can say that M40 concrete will be good enough for this, with 75 mm of nominal cover and 360 kg per meter cube as the minimum cement content, and 0.4 as the water to cement ratio. So that was about various conditions. What shall be the grade of concrete that we should provide in order to give us a sufficient durability for that particular case. Next is the creep of the concrete. So what is the creep of the concrete? It is a time dependent strain in concrete due to the sustained loading. So suppose a concrete is kept under a sustained loading. Suppose if I consider a beam or a column of a particular house, so over the years it is just subjected to some sustained loading, and there it is expected that it will develop certain amount of strain. Initially it will develop certain amount of strain for sure because of that loading, and also with the passage of time there will be a certain increase in that particular strain, and this time dependent strain is known as the creep of that particular concrete. So whenever this strain will be dependent on the time, this particular phenomenon, you can say that it is a creep of the concrete, and dead load and pre-stressing force are the examples of the permanent loading. So pre-stress is like that there are certain beams which are formed by applying stress initially so that it is resistant to the particular further stress which it will be subjected to. So in that type of concrete elements where the pre-stressing is done, that is a pre-stress concrete, and also for the dead loads of various buildings or various structures, over the years these things are actually subjected to this creeping thing. So but drawback is that the exact mechanism of the creep in the concrete is still not fully understood, and it is generally attributed to internal movement of absorbed water. So we are attributing this thing to the internal movement of absorbed water, the viscous flow, or the sliding between the gel particles, the moisture loss, and the growth in the micro cracks. So these are the certain factors which we are attributing for the creep of that particular concrete. But in actual, we haven't yet devised any proper mechanism to demonstrate the creep of the concrete or to know about the creep of the concrete. So till now, nothing has been developed such so as to know about the creep of the concrete. Only that this particular phenomenon happens is known to us. So this is a particular graph which shows the creep of the concrete, and this is not a stress strain graph, this is a strain versus time graph. So as you know that this creep is a time dependent strain, so we are representing it with the help of a strain versus time graph. And you can see that initially at this part there is some drastic amount of strain, and it happens because whenever that building or that particular element or the particular member of concrete is constructed, and it will be actually subjected to some load, and initially it will show some considerable amount of strain, and this won't be time dependent because it will be occurring at the instant when the load is applied. So, and that load will be sustained by the building for some longer period of time, and thus we can see that there is some increase in that particular strain, and we are calling this thing as the creep strain. This particular increase in that strain, we are telling it as the creep strain. So this is the creep strain, and also it is seen that after a certain point of the time we can see that this strain is actually recovered. So this can be said as a first it will be recovered instantaneously, that it will be suddenly getting recovered, and then there will be some deferred recovery, that is it again the recovery will also be somehow time dependent. Just as in previous case, the strain was somewhat time dependent. After a certain time, after this particular instantaneous recovery, it is also seen that there will be some deferred recovery, that is the recovery will be time dependent. And again, when that particular possible amount of recovery is taken place in that particular concrete member, it is seen that there will be some residual amount of creep strain will be there, which can never be recovered, and that will be persistent in that particular member for a longer time, and we cannot actually eliminate that thing. So creep coefficient, that is represented by theta, is given by this ultimate strain, creep strain upon instantaneous elastic strain. So the creep coefficient is given by the ultimate creep strain upon the instantaneous elastic strain, and there is one comparison between the age of the concrete at the time of the loading and theta, that is our creep coefficient. So for 7 days age of a concrete, the creep coefficient is said to be 2.2. For 28 days it is said to be 1.6, and for 1 year the creep coefficient is 1.1. So you can say that with the increase of the time, the creep coefficient is actually decreasing because the instantaneous elastic strain is actually increasing and the ultimate creep strain is remaining constant. And the higher value of theta represents higher creep strain. So if we have a higher value of theta, we will have some higher amount of creep strain, and ultimate creep strain is more if load is applied at early stage of concrete. So also if we are applying load at some early stage of the concrete, we can say that the ultimate creep strength will be somewhat higher. So this table confirms that this particular thing, that ultimate creep strength will be more if the loading is applied at the early stage of the concrete. Like 7 days we have done the particular curing of that particular concrete, and then we have kept it for the particular exposure to that load. So in that case, it is seen that theta value is 2.2, that is the creep coefficient is having some larger value, because the ultimate creep strength will be very high but the instantaneous elastic strength will be very less for that particular concrete. So the creep value will be higher for concrete with less day of curing, and if it is subjected to loading at a very younger stage. So if it is subjected to loading at somewhat later stage, that is at 28 days or 1 year, it is seen that 1.6 or 1.1 respectively are the creep coefficient for 28 days and 1 year. So this statement is again confirmed that the ultimate creep strength is more if load is applied at early age of concrete. So this was about our creep of concrete. So I'll just move on to another topic, that is the modulus of elasticity, and then we will conclude this particular video lesson, and the testing of hardened concrete will be started in the next particular video. So the modulus of elasticity, we are actually having three types of modulus elasticity. First, you have this idea that first one is the initial tangent modulus, it happens initially. Next is the second modulus, and finally is the tangent modulus. So what is the initial tangent modulus? Here it is represented in the diagram. So if this is the stress strain diagram, the particular slope, as you know, this in the stress strain diagram, the slope will give us the modulus of elasticity at that particular point. So initially at this part, if we are trying to get the slope in the linear part, actually we will get the initial tangent modulus. Okay, so initial tangent modulus is defined as the slope of the tangent drawn at a point of start of the stress strain diagram. So the point where the stress strain diagram actually starts, where if we draw a slope over there representing the tangent of that particular curve, will give us the initial tangent modulus, and this is also called as the dynamic modulus of elasticity. So this other name for this is the dynamic modulus of elasticity, which is used for analysis due to dynamic loading, and it is calculated using resonance frequency test. So this is a test which is used to calculate the initial tangent modulus. The resonance frequency test is used for that. Next is the second modulus. Second modulus is somewhat at this point. The second modulus for the stress sigma is over here, and the second modulus is defined as the slope of line connecting point of start of stress strain diagram to the points with stress 1/3 of the ultimate stress. So it is the slope of line connecting the point of start of stress strain diagram, right, wherever the stress strain diagram will actually start, to that of the 1/3 of the ultimate stress, that is at this point where the ultimate stress is 1/3. So it is defined as our second modulus, and it is also called the static modulus of elasticity. It is also known as the static modulus of elasticity. So IS 456 provides standard formula for this particular modulus of elasticity, and it is given as EC is equal to 5000 root FCK. So EC equal to 5000 root FCK will give us the second modulus of elasticity, where FCK is our characteristic compressive strength of that particular concrete. So considering the effect of creep, ECE is again given by this particular relation, where if we consider the creep of the concrete, then ECE is that modulus of elasticity due to the creep of that concrete, and theta is represented by the creep coefficient, and FCK is our again characteristic compressive strength of the concrete. Finally, we have the tangent modulus, and it is defined as the slope of tangent drawn at any point of stress strain diagram. So at any point, if you are drawing the tangent, the slope of that particular tangent will give us the tangent modulus, and it is used in incremental load analysis. For incremental load analysis, we use this tangent modulus. So this is the particular stress strain diagram where we are actually trying to show the three different types of modulus of elasticity. This one is the initial tangent modulus, which is drawn at the initial stage of this stress strain graph. Next is the second modulus for the stress sigma, that is the point joining this initial point and this point where the stress is actually 1/3, and this line is the second modulus, and tangent modulus is thus that tangent which can be drawn at any point, and that slope will give us the tangent modulus. So I hope I will stop this video over here. Please do not hesitate to post any kind of doubt in the comment section, and also please like and share my video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And it is very well requested to you to please subscribe this channel, because this development of this particular video lectures does take some hard work. On the contrary, you just need to do one simple thing, that is just to click that red particular button of subscribe. So please, I just request you to subscribe this channel. That will help me grow, and thus I can bring to you some good lectures, better lectures for you. Thank you.